Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom deserves to be spread. Wishing you a delightful listening experience. Today, I'll be interpreting Career and Family for you. The subtitle is Women's Century-Long Journey Toward Equity. The author of this book is Claudia Goldin, the recipient of the 2023 Nobel Prize in Economics. She holds the prestigious position of the Henry Lee Professor of Economics at Harvard University and is the first woman in the Harvard Economics Department to receive a lifetime professorship. Her primary research areas include women's labor force and gender inequality. As of 2023, the Nobel Prize in Economics has been awarded 55 times, with 93 laureates in total. Claudia Goldin stands out as one of the 3 female economists and the only awardee in the field of women's economics. The book we are discussing today, Career and Family, showcases Goldin's numerous research achievements. It's not a highly theoretical or abstract work. Instead, reading it feels more like watching a century-spanning documentary, where you witness vivid faces emerging from real stories and observe the changes in the collective portrait of women through the lines and waves of charts. The lens zooms in and out, capturing women from different eras as they walk past us, sharing their life stories, choices, breakthroughs, and struggles. In this book, Goldin focuses on 2 main questions. One is how educated American women have balanced family and career over the past century, detailing the efforts and choices they have made. The other question explores the formation of the gender income gap in contemporary America and suggests ways to improve it. In today's analysis, we'll focus on these 2 questions. Let's start with the first one. Over the past century, how have educated American women balanced their careers and families? Prior to Claudia Goldin, no one had undertaken such a comprehensive study spanning such a long period. Goldin collected extensive data on women born between 1878 and 1978, who received a college education. She categorized them into 5 groups and delved into their ideals, aspirations, and choices regarding career, marriage, and children, as well as the obstacles they faced. The time span for each of these 5 groups is approximately 2 decades. Surprisingly, you'll discover that the life trajectories of women in each group are remarkably different, yet within each group, their choices exhibit a high degree of consistency. Why is this the case? As you continue listening, the answers will become apparent. Let's first examine the first group of educated women. Most of them were born in the late 1880s to the 1890s and graduated from college between 1900 and 1920. The data presented in the book about this group might be unexpected. Contrary to the common belief that earlier generations held more traditional views on marriage, with higher marriage and childbirth rates at an earlier age, this first group of women had the lowest marriage and fertility rates among the 5 groups. Half of them never had children, and nearly 1/3 remained unmarried for life. Moreover, many of the married women in this group married late. The primary reason for this phenomenon is the scarcity of individuals who could attend college during that time, approximately only 3%. When a woman decided to pursue higher education, she often made the choice to sacrifice family life for a career. The concept of balancing both career and family was not a viable option for them. The author recounts an incident from 1971 during her graduate studies at the University of Chicago, where she often saw a senior lady with white hair carrying a rectangular box to the computer center. The box contained hundreds of punched cards with computer code. This lady was Professor Margaret Reed, a 75-year-old retired economics professor at the University of Chicago. She was one of the earliest scholars to apply economics to family issues such as marriage, divorce, and childbirth. Professor Reed represents a typical figure from the first group, someone who worked hard to attend college, achieved career success, but remained unmarried and childless for life. So, was this because the first group of college-educated women had stronger career ambitions than the later groups? The research findings indicate that this is not the case. The outcomes were not driven by personal preferences but rather by objective factors. In the first half of the 20th century, there were widespread marriage restrictions in the U.S. government and corporations, prohibiting married women from certain jobs, such as teaching and clerical work. Even if a woman was not subject to marriage restrictions, balancing family and career was challenging due to the lack of modern household appliances we commonly use today. The domestic workload for women was heavy, forcing many to choose between family and career. When did this situation start to change? It was around the mid-20th century when the third group of women, those born between 1924 and 1943, entered the workforce after graduating from college. Skipping the second group, let's directly explore the third group. Women in the third group, born between 1924 and 1943, graduated from college after World War II. Their situation was markedly different from the first group. Over 90% of them got married, and most married at an early age, with the median age of marriage being 23. Almost all of the married women in this group had children. It's noteworthy that the beginning and end of the baby boom era in the U.S., from 1946 to 1964, nearly coincided with the time these women graduated from college. What led to this change? The external environment played a significant role. Firstly, the U.S. emerged from the Great Depression of the 1930s and the war, entering a relatively peaceful period. Secondly, after World War II, restrictions on marriage for teaching and office jobs in society reduced. In the 1950s, courts in various states in the U.S. essentially abolished marriage restrictions. Additionally, modern household appliances such as refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, and washing machines became widespread, saving women a considerable amount of household time. These changes made educated women in this group feel that it was possible to balance both career and family. Typically, their experiences involved falling in love in college, getting married right after graduation, and finding a clerical job to start working. Soon after having children, they would leave full-time employment to primarily take care of their families. Once their children were older and in school, they would return to the workforce. It's important to note the types of jobs these women engaged in. According to statistics from the 1950s, more than half of educated women in this group worked in low-risk positions such as teaching, secretarial work, nursing, and social services. The book collectively refers to these positions as low-risk jobs. Although these roles had limited promotion opportunities and relatively low wages, they were popular among women because they allowed for a better balance between work and family life. Their work intensity was not high, allowing them to leave work when their children finished school. Even if they interrupted their careers for a few years to care for their families, returning to the workforce was relatively straightforward. However, the children of the third group of women, which leads us to the fourth group of women we're about to discuss, were not content with such a lifestyle. The fourth group of women was born between 1944 and 1957, graduating from college in the mid-1960s to the late 1970s. Many of them witnessed their mothers spending extended periods at home, their skills becoming rusty, or even returning to work only to supplement household expenses with jobs they didn't particularly enjoy, low-risk jobs. Observing these circumstances, they were unwilling to live their lives like their mothers did. They felt the need to choose what they wanted to do and achieve self-fulfillment. Therefore, a new trend emerged among the fourth group of college-educated women, born of a desire to enter high-paying and prestigious professions such as law, medicine, finance, and management, careers that were considered the most lucrative and prestigious at the time. Moreover, an increasing number of women were no longer satisfied with just a bachelor's degree and began pursuing master's and doctoral degrees. The author herself was born in 1946, placing her in this fourth group of women, while her mother belonged to the third group. An interesting detail is that the author's mother, during the author's college years, strongly suggested obtaining a teaching certificate. The mother believed it was a reliable credential, offering stability in case her daughter's husband was lost or her child started school. However, the author didn't desire such a traditional and stable job. She wanted to pursue a PhD, make her mark in a competitive and vibrant field. The author's experience is quite similar to that of many women during that time. However, many women's mothers supported their daughters in pursuing their dreams and taking a different path from the previous generation. Additionally, there was a tumultuous movement in the late 1960s and early 1970s in the United States, led by women's organizations, advocating for women's liberation through marches and demonstrations. This movement awakened the career aspirations of many women. Accompanying the strong career ambitions of the fourth group of women was a later age of marriage. The median age of marriage rose to 25, 2 years higher than the third group because many of them wanted to focus on their careers before starting a family. It was speculated that delaying childbirth would make it less likely for women to deviate from their career tracks once they were established. The ability to entertain such thoughts and realize them was also significantly influenced by a change in external conditions, the widespread availability of birth control pills. In 1960, birth control pills received approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and were introduced to the market the following year. Initially, they were primarily used by married women because many states in the U.S. prohibited unmarried, underage women from using such contraceptive products. However, by the mid-1970s, restrictions were relaxed, and the legal age of adulthood in the U.S. was lowered from 21 to 18. As a result, most college students could now use birth control pills. This was a crucial development because, in the era of the third group of women, many people married early due to pregnancies. The popularity of birth control pills, coupled with the increasing legalization of abortion in many places, allowed the fourth group of women the conditions to simultaneously enjoy both career and love, with fewer women marrying hastily due to unexpected pregnancies. As petroleum geologist Clark remarked, the feminist movement instilled the desire to work in us, while effective contraceptive measures gave us the ability to work. Therefore, the typical image of the fourth group of college-educated women at the time was prioritizing their careers, followed by marriage, and then choosing an appropriate time to have children. However, delaying childbirth was not without its costs. Over time, the fertility of many women gradually declined. Still, at that time, there was not much research on changes in fertility, and the fourth group of women mainly referred to their mothers' experiences, feeling that their mothers did not encounter many difficulties in childbirth, so they felt that delaying childbirth was not a big issue. Many only realized they had forgotten to have children after achieving career success. The data showed that during the peak period of childlessness for this group of educated women, 28% of those aged 45 had not given birth, significantly higher than the first three groups. Many women went through their reproductive years without having children. Moving on to the fifth group of women, born between 1958 and 1978, who graduated from college between 1980 and 2000, they learned from the lessons of the previous generation, leading to an interesting phenomenon. Although the fifth group of women continued the trend of delaying marriage, with the median age of marriage further rising to around 27, their fertility rates saw a substantial increase. During the peak period of childlessness for the fifth group of women, the proportion of those over 40 who had not given birth dropped to 20%. Towards the end of the fifth group, around the year 2000, for this batch of women who graduated from college, the proportion of those who remained childless decreased even further to 17%, comparable to the data from the baby boom era of the third group. This was not only because the fifth group of women learned from the previous generation's lessons, reminding themselves not to forget about having children while pursuing their careers. Two crucial factors played a significant role: the advancement of various reproductive technologies, including in vitro fertilization, and the improvement of systems such as maternity leave that protect women's reproductive rights in the workplace. These factors made the fifth group of women more capable of achieving a win-win situation between their careers and families. The term win-win situation between career and family is not vague in this research. The author provides clear measurement criteria. The definition of having a family is giving birth to or adopting at least one child, and having a career is defined by the woman's annual income continuously exceeding a specific threshold for several years. This income threshold, in simplified terms, is at least not lower than the mid to lower income level of men of the same age and education level. Applying this measurement standard, let's review the situations of the third, fourth, and fifth groups of educated women. In the third group, only 6% of women achieved the dual success of career and family in their 30s. In the fourth group, this percentage increased to 14%, and in the fifth group, it rose to 22%. Although this figure may still be lower than expected by many, the author believes that this upward trend will continue. Over the past century, educated women have experienced a journey from choosing between establishing a career or starting a family to starting a family before working, then to establishing a career before starting a family, and finally to the twists and turns of balancing career and family. Their situation has gradually improved step by step. The author believes that there are reasons to remain optimistic about the future. Alright, let's move on to the second part, discussing another major issue explored in the book, the gender income gap. The author's research indicates that despite the increasing ability of educated women to balance career and family over the past 120 years, their income levels still significantly lag behind those of men. On average, female college graduates from the fourth and fifth groups earn 27% less than their male counterparts of the same age. So, what causes this difference? The term gender income gap is often discussed alongside gender discrimination. For instance, a well-known case a few years ago involved American actress Michelle Williams. She discovered that her male co-star in a movie reshoot received a staggering $1.5 million, while she, the lead actress, was paid only $100,000, 15 times less. The author also shares a personal experience. She was invited to review an internal report by a renowned international organization. Besides her, 2 male economists were invited as reviewers. Later, she discovered that the male economists received double her compensation. Only after the organization's chief economist became aware of this unfair practice did the author receive higher-level compensation. Irony struck as the review she was supposed to conduct involved the gender discrimination issues within the organization. These instances, though striking and memorable, are not, according to the author's research, the primary factors contributing to the overall gender income gap. Prejudiced and discriminatory individual behaviors, she found, do not play a major role. So, what is the primary factor? Is it because women, on average, have lower educational levels than men, thus widening the income gap? Before the 1980s, differences in education levels were indeed a significant factor causing income disparity. However, after 2000, the overall education levels of women were very similar to those of men. Even when comparing men and women with the same educational background, female college graduates from the 4th and 5th groups earn 27% less than their male counterparts of the same age, eliminating education as a factor. Another often cited factor is occupational differences between men and women. Women are more likely to work in professions such as teaching, nursing, and accounting, which generally have lower incomes than professions often occupied by men, such as managers, civil engineers, and sales representatives. This difference contributes to the overall gap. However, the author conducted a hypothetical experiment, creating an environment of gender equality in occupations. The results showed that this only eliminated about 1/3 of gender income inequality. In other words, a significant portion of the gap remained unexplained. This part of the book feels like reading a mystery novel. Detectives propose various speculations around a mystery, one by one being ruled out by the author, leaving readers increasingly curious about the underlying truth. Delving deeper into the data, the author found a crucial clue: income disparity is not a static figure. For the same group of men and women, their income gap gradually widens with age. For instance, among the 5th group, women college graduates born around 1963 earned 90% of their male counterparts' income in their 20s. However, in their 30s, women's income dropped to 76% of men's, and by their 40s, it further decreased to 70%. This trend is observable across all age groups in the 5th group, indicating that men and women who graduated from college between 1980 and 2000 started their first jobs with similar incomes. In fact, many women even earned higher incomes than men right after graduation. However, at some point after their first jobs, the income gap widened, growing larger with age. So, when exactly does this moment occur? You might have already guessed it, after the birth of their first child, around the age of 28 to 29. The reasons behind this are understandable. Women often choose to reduce their workload after giving birth, sometimes due to changes in job responsibilities initiated by the company, or by actively opting for a more flexible work schedule. Overall, their working hours tend to shorten. Now, does the widening of the gender income gap result from women working fewer hours, causing their wages to naturally decrease? Statistical analysis by the author revealed that this is not the case. It's not simply a matter of working fewer hours. There is another reason: accumulating more work hours in many fields increases the value of your time in the future. Conversely, if you worked fewer hours in the past, each hour of your future work becomes less valuable. In which fields does this phenomenon occur? Data indicates that it mainly occurs in fields like law, medicine, finance, and management, areas that are highly lucrative but also exhibit severe income inequality. For instance, in the medical field, the more patients a doctor has encountered, the more experience they have, making their time more valuable. In finance, law, and management, where much time is spent communicating and maintaining relationships with clients, the more crucial the project, the more this applies. A woman with a child, if unable to respond at any time, might miss opportunities to participate in essential projects. Even if her supervisor is trying to protect her by avoiding the most demanding and time-consuming clients, it still slows down her accumulation of experience. As a result, the value of each hour of her future work becomes increasingly lower than that of her male colleagues of the same age. However, not all fields follow this pattern. Data indicates that in the fields of engineering, science, and computer mathematics, the gender income gap is relatively small. Why is this the case? The author used the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Information Network to study the requirements for working hours in different professions. They found that 5 dimensions have a decisive impact on the gender income gap in different occupations. These dimensions are: how much interaction the job requires with others, whether an individual's decisions affect others in the job, the importance of building and maintaining interpersonal relationships in the job, whether the job demands strict adherence to schedules, and whether employees can decide tasks and priorities on their own. In fields like engineering, science, and computer mathematics, where interpersonal interaction is limited, client relations are minimal, and employees often work independently, arranging their schedules, the gender income gap tends to be smaller. However, in positions such as law, management, sales, and self-employed doctors and dentists, experience and networking are crucial. These roles often involve actively seeking and maintaining clients, being on call at all times, working overtime, and frequent business trips, resulting in high gender income gaps. In the author's research, jobs with high time demands and requiring employees to be constantly on call are referred to as greedy jobs. A typical characteristic of these jobs in terms of income is that the longer the working hours, the higher the return per unit of time. However, women face a disadvantage in these greedy jobs after having children. The author suggests that greedy jobs are the primary culprit behind the widening gender income gap with age. From the perspective of overall family interests, having one person engaged in a greedy job and another in a flexible job often maximizes the overall benefits for the family. While a young couple can choose either both being flexible or both being greedy, this might lead to financial strain or chaos at home. Even the wealthiest families cannot outsource all household chores. Therefore, a division where one person is flexible and the other is greedy, one being on call at work and the other being on call at home, is a rational choice for many families. However, due to traditional societal expectations for women to focus on domestic responsibilities, the one opting for a flexible job is often the woman. From this perspective, the author believes that internal inequality within families leads to gender inequality in the labor market, and these two aspects are two sides of the same coin. The author acknowledges that changing societal gender role expectations, encouraging men to take on more family responsibilities, is challenging for most countries, including the United States. Therefore, the author advocates a solution focusing on the industry level, reducing the greediness of jobs. Is it possible? The author thinks it is. Looking at the abnormal pharmacy industry, which is high income and often requires client interaction, yet exhibits a small gender income gap, data shows that the median income of female pharmacists is approximately 94% of male pharmacists. This gap has gradually narrowed over the past 50 years due to increased substitutability among pharmacists. In the past, pharmacists needed to prepare drugs specifically, leading to close relationships with clients. Each pharmacist might have had their loyal customers, knowing their medical conditions, medications, and personal details. Pharmacists might even be called in the middle of the night to urgently prepare medications for familiar clients. This made being a pharmacist a greedy job similar to present-day lawyers or executives. However, in recent decades, standardized drug preparation has become more common, patient information is detailed in electronic records, and pharmacists no longer need personal connections with patients to quickly provide them with the right medications. Pharmacists have become almost perfectly interchangeable in this industry, eliminating the scenario where longer working hours result in higher future hourly earnings. This conclusion can be extended to other industries. If a company enhances the interchangeability among team members, the working hours for each person can become more flexible, reducing the overall greediness of work. From the perspective of the pharmacy industry, this change does not lead to a decrease in their compensation. The author found in their research that besides the pharmacy industry, similar changes are beginning to occur in other industries such as hospitals, consulting, accounting, and finance. This is based on the upgrading of information management and communication tools, as well as the realization by more companies that current young employees, regardless of gender, are more likely to resign due to long and uncontrollable working hours. If they suddenly quit without someone to replace them, the company will be the one to suffer. Therefore, many companies are starting to consciously cultivate interchangeability among their employees. At this point, you might think of many companies' internal knowledge management, experience accumulation, and features present in many online office communication software, historical chat record synchronization, document synchronization, and relationship handover. All of these functions gradually enhance interchangeability among employees. In addition to strengthening the interchangeability of team members and avoiding everyone being on call at all times, the book also mentions other feasible paths to weaken the disadvantages women face in the workplace. For example, increasing the supply of high-quality childcare services and reducing the cost for young parents to take care of their children. Additionally, further developing technologies and organizational methods that make remote work and flexible work more efficient can make the time of both men and women more flexible. Just as the COVID-19 pandemic was beginning to ease globally and countries were gradually returning to work, the author mentioned in the epilogue that this pandemic has largely accelerated the technological development and widespread application of remote work. Even after returning to work, people have started to work remotely and flexibly more frequently, which is beneficial for narrowing the gender income gap. Alright, here's a summary of the key points I'd like to share with you from this book. Let's quickly recap. On the issue of gender income gap we discussed earlier, the author demonstrates that the key problem lies not in individual subjective gender discrimination but in a more widespread conflict within families between efficiency and fairness. If we consider the family as a unit, in the current competitive environment, one person working greedily, in a demanding job, constantly on call in the workplace, while another person works flexibly, being on call at home, is a rational path to maximize overall family interests. However, since the one opting for flexible work is often a woman, this leads to a gradual widening of the income gap with men after the birth of the first child. In the earlier part, we reviewed the book's portrayal of knowledgeable women balancing and struggling between career and family over the past 100 years. Time is fair, no one has more minutes or seconds than others. People must choose how to allocate and make the most of their time. Knowledgeable women over the centuries have been exploring the answer to this question, breaking barriers, narrowing gaps, and passing down experiences and lessons from generation to generation. It becomes evident that the primary factors prompting changes in the choices and circumstances of each group of women are not shifts in their preferences or aspirations, they remain unchanged, but rather external constraints and rapidly changing historical information. Each generation observes the lives of the previous generation, absorbing their experiences and lessons. Each generation strives to make the most rational decisions under the social and technological constraints of their time. Author Claudia Golden wants us to see that the key to the problem does not lie with a specific group of people or an individual, it doesn't hinge on subjective preferences or hindrances. While this may be good news, it also makes the path forward more challenging. In her words, to achieve the ideal balance in an uncertain future, it requires changes not only from women and families but also a re-evaluation of the nation's work and care systems, paving the way for progress, only a matter of time. Looking back at the century-long journey of women pursuing equality, society has been progressing, but satisfaction is far from being reached in this profoundly impactful issue. For such a significant problem, humanity evidently has a long road ahead. However, finding the root causes of the problem is precisely the discrimination point to solve it. This book undoubtedly provides us with a clear perspective, enabling us to explore answers to the problem through detailed data analysis. As Nobel laureate and chairman of the Committee for the Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel, Per Stromberg, said, Claudia Golden's groundbreaking research has enlightened us on the obstacles that need to be addressed in the future. From Golden's proposed improvement ideas, a society more friendly to women is undoubtedly a better one for men as well. Congratulations, you've completed another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, give it a thumbs up, and share it with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading, opening the door to a better future. Thank you, and goodbye.